I knew the day would be messy the moment I heard the chipped mug crack against the counter. That mug, white ceramic with the faded blue proverb "character is built when no one watches," had survived 12 years in my kitchen. It only broke when someone handled it carelessly, which meant my sister-in-law Amber had arrived early. Her voice floated from my living room before I even turned the corner. "I mean, come on, Lauren. Not every kid is cut out for college. Maybe Mira should consider alternatives." My name is Lauren Hale, operations director at a Seattle tech logistics firm, and the mother of the most determined 17-year-old you could ever meet. And on her graduation morning, my own family had gathered not to celebrate her but to carve her future into something smaller, quieter, more convenient for them. I stepped into the room with a smile that didn't touch my eyes. "Good morning, everyone." My mother-in-law, Janice, sat primly on my sofa like she owned the house. Next to her, Amber lounged with her legs curled underneath her, holding the chipped mug as if it were disposable. My husband, Mark, paced near the window, refusing to meet my gaze. That was the first red flag. Mark only avoided eye contact when he'd done something cowardly. I moved toward the mug and took it from Amber with a gentle but firm grip. "This is my favorite," I said softly. "Please be careful with it." She raised her brows. "It's just a cup, Lauren." "No," I said, brushing ceramic dust from my fingers, "it's not." The mug mattered today more than she could possibly know. Janice exhaled in that disappointed way she'd perfected. "We're worried about Mira," she said. "She keeps talking about scholarships and university admissions, but you've allowed her to get unrealistic expectations." I felt the heat rise in my chest. She earned those expectations. Every one of them. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Mark finally turned around. "Maybe Mom's right," he muttered. "Maybe we should talk about a gap year. You've been pushing her." That sentence sliced through me. Not because it was true, but because it was rehearsed. Amber tucked her hair behind her ear. "Exactly. And considering what happened with that scholarship." "What scholarship?" I asked. Amber blinked, performative innocence dripping off her like cheap perfume. "Oh. Mark didn't tell you?" My stomach tightened. "Tell me what?" Mark swallowed, looked away again. "The board withdrew Myra's scholarship offer. They sent an email last week." I felt the world shift. Not because of the withdrawal itself, but because I knew my daughter hadn't seen any such email. And because universities don't silently revoke full tuition STEM scholarships days before graduation. They call. They verify. They definitely don't send a single email. "Which email address did they send it to?" I asked quietly. Mark hesitated. I forwarded it. I think." He was lying. Badly. Janice chimed in with a sympathetic tone meant to slice me open. "We know it's not your fault, dear. But maybe if you hadn't worked so much." That was it. I exhaled slowly, letting the room settle into uncomfortable silence. "I'm going to Myra's school," I said. "Apparently, there are things I need to verify." Janice scoffed. "Lauren, don't make a scene." "Oh, I'm not making a scene," I said, grabbing my blazer. "I'm gathering facts." I felt Amber smirk behind me as I walked out. But that smirk disappeared 3 hours later. Because by noon, I had the truth. And the truth wasn't just ugly. It was intentional. At 3:17 p.m., in the school auditorium buzzing with families and camera flashes, I spotted the person whose signature sat at the bottom of the scholarship contract, the real contract, not the tampered one my husband had forwarded. She handed me a sealed folder with a notarized affidavit and timestamped text records proving exactly who had reached out behind my back. And my world, my daughter's world, changed shape. I looked up toward the rows of folding chairs where my family sat, oblivious. Myra's name was about to be called soon. And by the time those stage lights hit her face, everyone in that auditorium would know exactly who had robbed her future, and exactly who was about to hand it back. Because I wasn't here to cause drama. I was here to reveal the truth. And graduation day was the perfect place to do it. I slipped into the side wing of the auditorium just as the jazz band transitioned into their warm-up finale. Parents shifted in their seats, fanning themselves with programs, while students lined up backstage, adjusting gowns and caps. The atmosphere was electric with pride, except inside me, where a cold, focused fury had settled. The folder in my hand felt heavier than its paper contents. Notarized affidavit. Timestamps. Forwarded emails. Server logs. A printed copy of the original scholarship letter with Myra's name on it in bold. And the final piece, a screen capture of the tampered withdrawal email, the one forwarded from my husband's own account, complete with the telltale metadata that proved it was never sent by the university in the first place. The admissions director, Ms. Clara Whitfield, had been surprisingly direct when I'd arrived at her office earlier. "We never withdrew anything," she'd said, sliding her glasses down her nose. "And I'm very troubled by what you're describing. You mentioned your daughter hasn't received our latest communication?" "No," I said. "She thinks they rejected her." Clara shook her head. "We've been waiting for her confirmation. In fact, she opened her inbox. Someone posing as you emailed us 2 weeks ago, asking to delay the scholarship acceptance." My pulse spiked. Someone posing as me? Clara turned her monitor. "We keep internal logs. This is the message. It came from an address that looks like yours but isn't." She paused. "Do you recognize this phone number associated with the e-sign request?" When she read the number aloud, the world stilled. It was Amber's. That was the moment something in me clicked into place. Not confusion. Not disbelief. Strategy. I asked Clara to print everything. I requested the official affidavit acknowledging the fraud attempt. She signed it. A school notary stamped it. I shook her hand calmly, even though my heart pounded viciously. Now, hours later, as I stood at the side of the stage gripping the folder like a lifeline, I replayed every red flag from the past month: Myra's confusion about a missing letter, Mark accidentally misplacing her college info packet, Janice's suspicious insistence on managing Myra's expectations. They had cornered my daughter quietly, systematically, all while performing concern in front of me. But graduation day? That stage? That crowd? That was my arena. With the hum of hundreds of conversations echoing around me, I approached the backstage coordinator, a kind man named Devin who had been directing students to their places. "Can I speak with you a moment?" I asked. He glanced at the official folder in my hands and nodded cautiously. "Everything all right?" "Yes," I said. "But I need to ensure one thing. I have verified documents related to a scholarship my daughter was awarded. There has been foul play, and the school's administration wants this addressed immediately. Principal Newcomb is already aware." Devin blinked. "Do you need a moment on stage?" "Just a brief one," I said calmly, "right before my daughter walks." His eyebrows rose. "Are you sure?" "My child's entire future was tampered with," I said. "I'm very sure." He hesitated, then nodded. "I'll signal you." I tucked the folder beneath my arm and stepped closer to the curtain, watching the front rows. My family sat in a cluster, Janice upright with perfect posture, Amber tapping on her phone, and Mark slumped forward as if the weight of his complicity finally pressed on him. Good. Let the pressure build. I spotted Mira near the student line, adjusting her tassel nervously. Her sea blue scarf, the one she always wore on big days, peeked from beneath her gown. She caught my eye and gave a small smile, one that made my chest ache with equal parts pride and rage. She deserved the world. They tried to take it. "Honor distinctions," Devin whispered to the students. "Prepare to walk." The principal stepped up to the microphone. Applause rolled through the room like a soft wave. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. A text from Mark. "We should talk." "Not here. Please." I didn't reply. Another from Amber. You're being dramatic. Don't embarrass yourself today. Perfect timing. Her arrogance was always her weakness. I screenshotted both messages. Evidence doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's handed to you by the guilty. The band quieted. Devin gave me a nod. Miss Hale, he whispered. You're up. I stepped onto the stage before Myra's row was called, stopping by the podium. Principal Newcomb leaned in. Are you certain you want to address this now? Absolutely, I said. We agreed transparency is best. He stepped aside, and for the first time, the auditorium settled into a focused hush. I looked out over the crowd, not with vengeance, but with clarity. My voice didn't shake when I spoke. Before we continue, I said, there is a matter of truth and accountability that needs to be addressed. It concerns my daughter, Mira Hale, and a scholarship that was nearly stolen from her. A ripple of shock moved through the audience. Janice's posture stiffened. Amber's phone froze halfway to her ear. Mark leaned back as if he'd been struck. I opened the folder slowly, deliberately. And the room held its breath. I wasn't here to shout or accuse. I was here to reveal. And revealing is far more devastating than anger. The soft buzz of whispers spread like a nervous current across the auditorium. I waited, letting the tension settle into the seats, letting every person in the room feel the weight of what was coming. It wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. When people hide behind manipulation, the truth delivered plainly is the sharpest justice there is. I lifted the first document from the folder, the notarized affidavit, and held it at my side rather than displaying it. My voice needed to lead, not the paper. This morning, I met with the admissions director at Ridgeview University to verify the status of my daughter's STEM scholarship. She was awarded that scholarship months ago based entirely on her hard work and merit. Parents looked at one another. Students turned in their seats. But someone, I continued, interfered. Someone contacted the university pretending to be me, using an email address designed to resemble mine, and tampered with Myra's acceptance. That sentence made the entire room sharpen and focus. I kept going. They asked the university to delay her scholarship activation. And days later, the university received a falsified withdrawal notice supposedly from the school, one that was forwarded to my husband and then to my daughter. A murmur rose, doubt, recognition, outrage. Janice's face pinched into something between fear and fury. Amber froze, blinking fast, caught off guard by public scrutiny. Mark stared at his hands, knuckles turning white. I slid the affidavit across the podium toward Principal Newcomb. This document, signed by the admissions director and verified by the school notary, confirms that Ridgeview University never withdrew the scholarship. It also confirms the attempted impersonation. The principal skimmed the first lines, lifted his gaze, and nodded grimly. Furthermore, I said, picking up the second sheet, the university provided internal message logs, showing the exact phone number linked to the fraudulent communication. The crowd leaned in as if collectively inhaling. The number, I said, voice precise, belongs to my sister-in-law, Amber Carter. A gasp split the silence. Amber shot to her feet. This is insane. You're twisting things. I was trying to help, there was a mix-up. Her voice faltered as every head in the place swiveled toward her. She glanced at Mark for backup, but he looked away. Not because he was innocent, but because guilt had dragged him into a corner. It's all here, I said steadily. Timestamped. Verified by the university's IT department. Amber backed down into her seat, cheeks blotched red. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I continued, unwavering. My daughter almost lost her future. Not because she lacked potential, not because she wasn't worthy, but because someone in our own family decided she didn't deserve to rise. The auditorium felt like a single living thing holding its breath. And let me be very clear, I said. This wasn't an accident. It was calculated. 2 weeks ago, someone attempted to delay her acceptance. Last week, a falsified notice was forwarded from a household device. This morning, I traced the digital signature to a phone that wasn't mine. I glanced directly at Mark. He flinched. And in the final insult, I added, I received text messages just now telling me not to embarrass myself. Gasps again, sharper this time. I raised my phone. Not to show, just to read. I won't display private numbers, I said. But I will read the words, because context matters. From Mark. We should talk. Not here. Please. From Amber. You're being dramatic. Don't embarrass yourself today. A low rumble moved across the audience, the kind that comes when truth starts locking into place. I lowered the phone. I'm not embarrassed, I said. I'm angry. And I'm done being quiet. Then I reached for the chipped mug I'd brought with me, wrapped carefully in cloth. I held it up where only the first few rows could see. Students squinted, confused. Adults leaned forward. It may seem strange that I'm holding this, I said. But this mug was the first clue. Amber's eyes widened. The auditorium stilled once more. This morning, I noticed new cracks on this cup. It's always been fragile, but it only breaks when handled carelessly. When I saw it in Amber's hands, and saw the damage, I realized something important. I turned the mug. Beneath the glaze, faint impressions showed, hard to see but unmistakable if you knew what to look for. Hairline scratches from a ring that wasn't mine. A ring Amber always wore. This mug, I said, was by my desk 2 nights ago when someone went through my computer. It was moved. The browser was open. And the email address used in the impersonation attempt had been typed into an autofill window. People gasped again. Amber shrank deeper into her chair. I added quietly, she forgot cameras exist in modern kitchens. I didn't show footage, this wasn't a courtroom. But the implication was enough. Doorbell and kitchen cams catch everything. I placed the mug gently on the podium, the faded proverb facing the crowd. Character is built when no one watches. I could feel Mira standing behind the curtain now, listening. I didn't look at her yet. I set one boundary, I said. 1. Protect my daughter's future. And instead, someone tried to erase it for convenience, jealousy, or control. I closed the folder. But the beautiful thing about truth, I finished, is that once revealed, it can't be undone. The principal stepped forward beside me. Thank you, Ms. Hale, he said into the microphone. We will continue our ceremony. And rest assured, the university has confirmed Mira Hale's full scholarship stands. The room erupted, cheers, applause, supportive shouts. Mira stepped into view, tears on her cheeks, hand pressed to her heart. I moved aside as her name was called. And as she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, with applause thundering around us, I looked straight at the people who tried to sabotage her. Janice looked stunned. Amber looked cornered. Mark looked like the truth had finally exposed every cowardly inch of him. Good. But this wasn't the end. It was only the reveal. The consequences were just beginning. If part 3 was the reveal, part 4 became the fallout, the quiet, messy kind that unravels people from the inside out. I stepped off the stage as applause thundered through the auditorium, but behind that curtain, behind the smiling families and proud flashes of cameras, my world narrowed into a single moment. Mira stood there, diploma in one hand, her sea blue scarf slipping from her shoulder. She wasn't crying from shock anymore. She was crying because, for the first time, she understood the scale of the betrayal, and the scale of the love that had pushed me to expose it. She walked straight into my arms. Mom, she whispered, voice trembling, you didn't have to do all that. Yes, I murmured, holding her tighter, I did. And behind us, through the curtains, I heard the shuffle of footsteps, familiar ones. Mark. He didn't rush. He didn't speak right away. He stood there, hands shoved into his pockets, guilt radiating from him like heat from pavement. We need to talk, he said. I turned slightly, still keeping Mira close. We will. After she celebrates. After she knows her future is safe. After you stop prioritizing everyone else's comfort over her future. His jaw tightened. It wasn't like that. Mira pulled away from me, wiping her cheeks. Dad, did you know? There it was, the question I'd hoped she wouldn't ask today. Mark stayed silent for too long. That was his answer. When he finally spoke, it sounded thin, defensive. I thought delaying her acceptance might give us time to figure out finances. Finances? I cut in. It was a full tuition scholarship. He blinked. He hadn't expected that detail to be thrown so plainly at him. Myra's voice cracked. You lied to me. Amber appeared next, red-eyed, furious, still trying to assemble a narrative that made her look innocent. She grabbed Mark's arm. Don't let her turn everyone against us, she hissed under her breath, but loud enough for me to hear. I raised a brow. Amber, you used your number. You logged into my email. You impersonated me. You left a trail a child with basic tech skills could follow. Her mouth opened, then closed. When Janice arrived, we became a complete tableau, our private family fracture displayed in a cramped backstage corner. Janice folded her hands, voice painfully calm. Lauren, this was unnecessary. You've humiliated all of us. No, I said. I revealed what you did. Humiliation is optional, accountability isn't. She flinched as if the word hurt. Mira looked between the three of them like she was seeing her family through a cracked mirror. Why would any of you interfere? You knew how hard I worked. Janice exhaled dramatically, as if she were the victim. Sweetheart, we were worried. University is far away. You're young. We thought maybe a local program. You mean, I said, you wanted her close enough to control. That's unfair, she snapped. We thought she might get overwhelmed. She wasn't overwhelmed, I said quietly. You were. Silence stretched long enough to feel like a chasm. A teacher poked her head backstage. Graduates' family photos are starting. If you want the main stage shots, now's a good time. Thank you, I said. We'll be there soon. She left, and I turned to Mira. Go get your pictures with your friends. I'll join you in 5 minutes. She hesitated but nodded, wiping her eyes once more before stepping out. The second she left, the air thickened. Mark took a step closer. Lauren, we can sort this out privately. You shouldn't have told everyone. And you shouldn't have sabotaged your daughter, I replied calmly. Yet here we are. His face reddened. You're blowing this out of proportion. No, I said, I'm putting it in proportion. Your daughter was nearly robbed of her future so your sister could, what, feel superior? Keep her dependent? And you went along with it because you were too afraid to confront them. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Amber crossed her arms. This is ridiculous. None of this will matter after today. I smiled, not kindly. Amber, this isn't over today. There are administrative consequences for academic interference. And legal consequences for identity impersonation. Her face drained of color. Janice stepped forward defensively. You wouldn't dare. I wouldn't need to, I said. The university is filing an internal report. They sent me a copy. The school board will review it Monday. Amber staggered back a step, hand flying to her mouth. I added, and the principal heard everything I said. Your reputations aren't my responsibility. Janice hissed, you've turned this family into a circus. No, I said softly. You did that the moment you decided Mira didn't deserve to outgrow your grasp. The sound of applause swelled through the curtains again, another graduate crossing the stage. The world moved on, oblivious to the implosion behind the scenes. Mark scrubbed a hand over his face. I didn't think it would go this far. It didn't have to, I said. You could have told the truth weeks ago. He shook his head slowly. I didn't know how to say no to them. And that's why, I said evenly, you're not getting a say in Myra's educational decisions from this point on. Janice's eyes widened. You can't just. I can, I said, and I will. Amber stepped forward, desperate. Lauren, please. Don't ruin my life over a misunderstanding. This wasn't a misunderstanding, I replied. This was sabotage. She backed into a chair, gripping its edge like the room tilted under her feet. Mark swallowed hard. Please, just, give us a chance to fix this. You can start, I said, by apologizing. Amber's head jerked up. To you? No, I said. To Mira. The way she froze told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done, only that she'd been caught. That was the moment I made my final decision. Stay away from her, I said. All of you. Until she decides otherwise. Janice shouted, you can't keep us from our own family. I can, I said, and I just did. Before they could answer, the curtain rustled, and Mira peeked in. Mom? Are you coming? Yes, I said instantly. I stepped toward her, leaving the three of them behind, silent, stunned, stripped of the control they'd always assumed they had. When Mira and I walked into the sunlight-filled gym for the group photos, she leaned close and whispered, "Thank you for choosing me." I looked down at her, heart swelling. Always. But even as we smiled for pictures, I felt it, the final reckoning hadn't happened yet. They had robbed her future. I had revealed the truth. But consequences? They were only beginning to unfold. The gym was a mosaic of joy, caps tossed in corners, laughter echoing against high ceilings, camera flashes catching glitter from gowns and tassels. Parents hugged their kids with that mixture of pride and disbelief that comes from watching a child step into adulthood. For a moment, I let myself breathe it in. Mira posed with her friends, her smile returning piece by piece like sunlight thawing frost. But even as she laughed, even as she nudged me to take more pictures, I could feel the weight of unfinished business pressing at my back like a shadow. The truth had been revealed, but the aftermath still had sharp edges. And one of those edges walked right toward me. Principal Newcomb approached with the steady, purposeful stride of an administrator used to crises. "Ms. Hale," he said gently. "Do you have a moment?" "Of course." He guided me a few steps away from the cluster of students. "I've spoken with Ridgeview University. I've shared the affidavit and the IT logs you provided." He paused, eyes narrowing. "They're initiating a fraud review." A cold satisfaction spread through me, not vindictive, just righteous. "They asked," he continued, "if you'd like the school to draft a statement confirming Myra's academic performance and that the interference was external, not due to any misconduct on her part." "Yes," I said without hesitation. "That would protect her fully." "One more thing." He lowered his voice. "There's a parent committee meeting next week. Some board members believe the interference came from individuals with access to school systems." I blinked. "I'm sorry?" He nodded gravely. "Someone accessed student files last month without proper authorization. We didn't know who, until now." My breath caught. "Amber?" "No," he said. "Your husband." The world tilted. A small, sharp silence dropped between us. I found my voice. "Mark doesn't work here." "No," he agreed. "But someone logged in from a linked account. An account tied to your home network. And the timestamps align with the attempted impersonation." My pulse hammered. He said he only forwarded an email. "Ms. Hale," he said gently, "he accessed the student portal." I felt it then, the click of the final puzzle piece. The moment when everything shifted from betrayal to clarity. "Thank you," I whispered. "If you need anything documented formally," he said, "let us know." I nodded. He walked away. I stood there for a moment, absorbing what this meant. Amber was the spark, but Mark, my husband, had opened the door. He hadn't just lied. He hadn't just avoided confrontation. He'd collaborated. Not out of malice. Out of fear. Fear of his mother. Fear of his sister. Fear of conflict. But weakness is still a choice. And the damage was still real. As I rejoined the crowd, my phone buzzed. A message from Mark. Long panicked. Lauren, we need to talk. Please don't make assumptions. I didn't mean for things to escalate. Mom and Amber were worried Mira wasn't ready. I thought delaying things might help. I never meant to hurt her. Let's fix this. Please. I stared at the message. Then at Mira laughing as her friends threw confetti. Then at the door where Amber and Janice hovered, waiting, watching, unable to leave but too ashamed to come near. A sudden calm washed over me. I typed one sentence back. We'll talk when we get home. All of us. That evening, after celebration dinner with Myra's closest friends and a small parade of neighbors who stopped by with flowers, the house grew quiet. Mira went upstairs early, exhausted from the emotional whirlwind of the day. When her bedroom door closed, I walked into the living room. Mark was waiting on the edge of the couch. Janice sat stiffly in an armchair. Amber hovered near the doorway like a cornered animal. The three of them looked up at me as if I was the one holding their fate. In a way, I was. I sat across from them, not out of courtesy, but strategy, my posture calm, my voice level, my gaze unwavering. We're going to speak plainly, I said. No performance. No excuses. Mark swallowed. Lauren. Not you first, I cut in. Amber. Her eyes widened. Me? Yes. You initiated the impersonation. Why? She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time all day, she didn't have an instant lie ready. Finally, she muttered, I thought. Mira moving away would break the family apart. You're so focused on your career. I thought she needed stability. I leaned forward. You mean you wanted her small? To stay close. To not outgrow you. Her face trembled. She didn't argue. I turned to Janice. And you? She bristled. I wanted what was best for her. No, I said, you wanted what was best for your control. The two aren't the same. Her lips thinned. You've always exaggerated. Everything is dramatic with you. Everything? I echoed. Or just the part where you're held accountable? She glared at me, but she didn't answer. Finally, I turned to Mark. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in one day. His hands shook on his knees. His voice cracked. I didn't know how to stop them. Mom pressured me. Amber kept insisting. I thought delaying things would calm the situation. Calm? I repeated softly. You nearly cost your daughter her scholarship. He ran a hand through his hair. I know. I know. I panicked. And instead of coming to me, I said, you chose cowardice. He looked up, eyes glassy. I didn't want conflict. You got conflict anyway. Silence filled the room, thick, heavy, suffocating. I stood slowly. This isn't just about today, I said. This is about a pattern. A long-standing one. You let your family manipulate every decision. You let them undermine me for years. But today? Today, you let them go after Mira. He closed his eyes. I'm sorry. I don't want apologies, I said. I want change. Amber and Janice stiffened. Mark whispered, what does that mean? It means, I said, voice steady, you are all staying away. From me. From Mira. From her future. Janice sputtered. You can't. I can, I said, and it's already done. Amber's voice cracked. You don't mean that. I do. Mark stood abruptly. Lauren, don't do this. Don't tear the family apart. I looked him dead in the eyes. I'm not tearing it apart. I'm removing the rot. He staggered back a step. I'll be drafting a separation agreement, I said calmly. Temporary. For now. Mark paled. Separation? Yes. I slipped the folder of evidence onto the table. And depending on what Ridgeview and the school board decide? Fraud is still on the table. Amber made a strangled noise. Janice gasped. Mark sat down hard. I continued, Mira and I will not be in contact with either of you until she graduates college. Whether that includes you, Mark, depends on your actions moving forward. He opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. No arguments. No negotiations. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. I picked up the chipped mug from the kitchen counter, the one that started it all. That proverb, I said softly, wasn't just decoration. I set it down gently. Character is built when no one watches. And all of you, I finished, failed the test. I walked away before any of them could speak, heading upstairs to my daughter, my priority, my boundary, my victory. But I knew part 6 would bring the final pivot. Not just punishment. Restoration. Justice that echoes.